Welcome to D-Debate. Today, we are looking at a deeply uncomfortable statistic.
Yeah, it's a rough one to face.
It really is. The average person is currently spending 105% of their net income.
Which is it's wild to think about.
Right. So if you are listening to this right now and feeling, a pit in your stomach because you know your outflow exceeds your income, well, you understand what that means. You are mathematically drowning month by month.
Exactly, yeah.
So we're dissecting the core philosophy behind the Wealth Bible to answer one central question. What actually stops that bleeding?
Right, like when a person transitions from a state of total financial lack to a state of sustainable prosperity, what is the true catalyst?
And that's exactly where we split. Because I argue that true financial empowerment stems fundamentally from a psychological revolution. It's the shift from a poor mindset to a wealthy mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It means dismantling limiting beliefs, engaging in active visualization, and, well, without that internal transformation, all the external financial tools and spreadsheets are completely useless.
And I look at this through a completely different lens. While a positive attitude is certainly pleasant, it is, frankly, entirely insufficient without mechanical execution.
But concrete action and structural discipline, executing a granular step-by-step budget, automating your savings, mastering the mechanics of the three major asset classes. These are the true drivers of wealth. It's the relentless application of financial mechanics that actually forces the mindset to adapt and change, not the other way around. Well, to understand why the mindset has to come first, we have to look at the psychological differences between how the poor and the wealthy operate.
Okay.
A poor mindset operates on what the material calls the evil rumor of lack.
Right, the scarcity thing.
Yes, exactly. This pervasive societal lie that there just isn't enough to go around. It's a zero-sum game to them. If my neighbor succeeds, it means there's less opportunity for me.
Which is mathematically false, but go on.
Right, but they don't see it that way. A wealthy mindset, however, operates on the absolute certainty of abundance. It operates on the belief that supply is infinite, that there is more than enough capital and opportunity for everybody.
Sure.
The very first step to true financial freedom is overcoming the limiting beliefs built by that evil rumor. People constantly say, I just don't have the income to invest, or I don't have the time to learn that skill.
Oh, we hear those rationalizations every single day.
Exactly, and they are nothing but psychological shields. They allow a person to stay comfortably inside their current reality. Until you shatter that belief, until you recognize that the answer to your financial distress rests entirely outside your comfort zone, you will never take the necessary risks.
But
You have to reprogram the brain for abundance, because abundance thinking is what allows you to recognize opportunities in the first place.
I have a fundamental problem with prioritizing the reprogramming phase over the action phase, though.
Why?
Because you can sit in your living room and reprogram your brain for abundance all day long, but there is a wide gulf between ability and action. Millions of people out there possess the intellectual ability, they possess the positive attitude, but they never take mechanical action.
I mean, that's fair, but
And let's return to the reality of that 105% expenditure rate. You cannot reverse mathematical insolvency by just thinking abundantly. Reversing that requires a strict mechanical spending plan.
it requires both.
But mechanics first. It requires mastering the language of money. You need to understand liquidity, like how quickly you can access your cash in a crisis. You need to understand gearing.
Right, leverage.
Exactly. How taking on structured, calculated debt can actually multiply your returns rather than just, drain your account like consumer credit cards. Action cures fear. By taking concrete steps to reduce liabilities and increase equity, you build the confidence that you are calling a wealth mindset.
I see why you think that, but let me offer a different perspective. I want to compare your reliance on strict budgeting mechanics to an engine in a car.
Okay, I'm listening.
A budget is an engine. It generates forward momentum, obviously. But visualizing wealth and possessing an abundance mindset is the steering wheel. An engine without a steering wheel just crashes you into a wall faster.
That's a bit dramatic.
But it's true. That is exactly what happens when people ruthlessly save but don't fundamentally believe they deserve to be wealthy, or they don't believe the universe has enough to offer them. They self-sabotage.
Well, they self-sabotage because they don't have systems.
No, they self-sabotage because they lack the belief. You cannot sustain the discipline required to execute those mechanics if your daily rituals don't reinforce an abundance mindset.
So what rituals are we talking about here then?
Two of the most powerful are visualization and tithing.
Tithing. Giving money away when you're broke?
Yes. Now, I know tithing sounds completely counterintuitive if you are only looking at the mechanics. Why give your money away when you're trying to build wealth, right?
Exactly. Mathematically, it makes no sense.
But psychologically, the mechanism is brilliant. Tithing literally amazes your brain cells. When you freely give money away, even a small amount that you are completely comfortable with, you are sending a powerful neurological signal to your subconscious.
Which is?
I have enough to give, therefore I must be safe. I must have abundance. It actively lowers the cortisol and panic associated with financial scarcity.
Interesting.
And you pair that with visualization. When you spend focused time putting your attention entirely on the situation you want, you are actively training your reticular activating system.
The RAS.
Yes, the RAS is the filter in your brain. If you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere on the highway. If you visualize success and abundance, your RAS filters your daily reality to highlight the opportunities and resources you previously ignored.
That is a very compelling explanation of the psychology, I'll give you that. But I would argue that the truly essential daily rituals are grounded in strict financial discipline, not visualization.
How so?
Well, if you want to build sustainable long-term habits, you have to look at the mechanics of restriction and automation. It's not about the tired cliche of like cutting out the daily cappuccino.
Right, that advice is so outdated.
Exactly. It's about the micro habits that prevent lifestyle creep. It's about ensuring your expenses don't magically rise every time your income does.
But restriction feels like deprivation without the right mindset.
It's only deprivation if you don't automate it. The mechanical secret is to bypass willpower entirely.
Automation.
Right. You set up a system where at least 10% of your net income vanishes into a savings or investment account before it ever hits your checking account. You pay yourself first, mathematically.
But what about the debt?
Then you tackle the debt. And here is where mechanics beat mindset every time. An abundance mindset won't tell you whether to use the avalanche method or the snowball method to clear your debt.
Well, no, but it gives you the drive to.
But the mechanical blueprint dictates that you analyze the interest rates. You attack the highest interest rate first, the avalanche method, because mathematically, that stops the compound interest from devouring your future equity. You build discipline through mathematical execution.
But if a person hasn't done the internal excavation to believe they are worthy of wealth, that strict mechanical execution will snap. They will relapse.
Not if they use the right diagnostic tools. And this is where a granular 4-step budget plan becomes the ultimate mechanism for liberation, not restriction.
A 4-step plan. Okay.
Step 1. You create a comprehensive list of all your income and expenses. Step 2. You list your regular, non-negotiable fixed bills. Step 3 is the most critical. You account for literally every other kind of discretionary expense.
Right. Going so far as to track hobbies like stamp collecting, which, honestly, that sounds like a level of micromanagement that will just burn someone out. How is tracking pennies spent on a hobby providing freedom?
Because that level of granularity is exactly how you bring the unconscious into the conscious. Most people have massive capital leaks they're entirely blind to.
Leaks? Sure. But tracking stamps?
Tracking the stamp collecting isn't about punishing yourself for having a hobby. It's about acknowledging the reality of where your resources are flowing, which leads directly to step 4. You take the total expenses, subtract them from the total income, and ruthlessly find the areas to cut back.
And if you're negative?
If you are over budget, you are using debt to supplement your lifestyle. That budget isn't micromanagement. It is a mathematical formula that provides freedom from the anxiety of the unknown.
Look, I agree that identifying capital leaks is necessary, but redirecting that capital effectively requires understanding the 4 fundamentals of wealth. And this is where the mechanics must surrender to a broader, holistic perspective.
The 4 fundamentals. Remind me.
They are assets, education, investment, and recreation. If you look at how these are defined in the material, they completely shatter the purely mechanical worldview.
How so? They seem very practical to me. Assets, education, investment.
because they force us to redefine what an asset truly is. Yes, financial assets are included, but true wealth requires us to recognize non-material assets.
Like what?
The love of a spouse, robust physical health, deep spiritual grounding. These are categorized as vital assets. It means true financial empowerment isn't just about the bank account. It's about holistic abundance.
Okay, but
And look at recreation. Taking a vacation, reading a novel, listening to a beautiful piece of music, these expand the mind. Recreation is categorized as a fundamental requirement for long-term financial stability because it enriches the psyche. It prevents the burnout that your granular budgeting inevitably causes.
I certainly value recreation and strong relationships, don't get me wrong. But let's look at how the other two fundamentals, education and investment, are applied practically.
Sure.
Continuous professional education is the most direct mechanical lever you can pull to increase your income. Let's step away from generic examples and look at modern digital workflows.
Okay.
If one professional only knows how to manually process data or run ad campaigns, their income is hard capped by their time, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But if another professional mechanically educates themselves on how to automate those workflows using AI tools, the second person has a structural mechanical advantage. They have a wider surface area to capture revenue.
Education is important, yes, but it isn't the primary driver.
It is when you pair it with the investment fundamental. You have to continually educate yourself on the mechanics of money so that you can handle larger sums.
I still think
Wait, let me finish this point. If you do not understand the mechanics of gearing, if you don't understand how to use the bank's money to acquire a cash-flowing asset, then whatever money your abundance mindset manages to attract will just sit idle. It'll lose its purchasing power to inflation. You have to build the mechanical container to hold the wealth.
Okay, I hear you. But I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because there is a perfect counterexample to the idea that technical education is the supreme driver of wealth.
All right, let's hear it.
Consider the highly educated professional, say a brilliantly qualified teacher or even a software engineer. They have all the right academic qualifications. They possess all the mechanical, technical education required to succeed. But what are they doing?
Working a job.
They are trapped in a safe, unfulfilling desk job that barely pays the bills. Why?
Often because of a lack of risk tolerance.
Exactly. It is a psychological barrier. It is fear. It is stage fright. Low self-esteem and the terror of failure act as the ultimate barriers to utilizing that education.
But
If technical education and mechanical capability were truly the supreme drivers of wealth, that highly educated professional would be incredibly wealthy. But they are financially stunted because they lack the mindset. They allowed fear to keep them in their comfort zone. Until they experience a psychological shift, their mechanical education is essentially useless.
But the cure for that fear isn't visualizing success while sitting on the couch.
It's part of it.
No, the cure is executing the blueprint. When you are overwhelmed by fear, the antidote is relying on the 3 major asset classes to systematically increase your net worth. It is a mechanical equation. Bring down your liabilities and increase your equity.
And how does understanding asset classes cure the psychological terror of losing everything?
By demystifying the process, you look at paper assets like index funds and bonds. They provide extreme liquidity and compound interest over time.
Okay.
You look at real property, which provides the mechanism of gearing, allowing you to leverage a small amount of your own capital to control a massive appreciating asset. And you look at business assets, which provide scalable cash flow.
I know what the assets are, but
But you don't overcome financial fear by hoping for the best. You overcome it by mastering how these 3 vehicles operate in the real world. Once you understand the mechanics of how real estate leverages debt safely, the fear dissipates.
a spreadsheet explaining real estate leverage cannot change your internal environment, which is where the true psychological shift happens. This brings us to why associating with successful people accelerates personal financial growth faster than any textbook.
Networking?
Yes, but more than that, you cannot execute that mechanical blueprint in a vacuum. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. if you are surrounded by people operating on the evil rumor of lack. Their cynicism will infect your decision-making.
So you go find successful people.
Yes, you actively spend time with the wealthy. You find a successful person and you take them to lunch. You immerse yourself in their presence to absorb their energy and witness their mindset in real time.
Absorb their energy?
It's science. Mirror neurons are a real psychological phenomenon. When you watch a wealthy person respond to a massive financial setback, not with panic, but with complete ownership of their choices, you absorb that resilience.
I mean, sure, modeling behavior is useful.
It's transformative. They refuse to be negatively affected. They simply pivot and take a new direction. If you can't take them to lunch, you attend live seminars or listen to their recorded programs. You marinate your brain in the psychology of success. That environmental shift is what makes your mechanical steps possible to execute.
Look, I completely agree on the immense value of associating with successful people, but you are romanticizing the mechanism of what is actually happening at that lunch.
I really don't think I am.
You are. You don't take a wealthy person to lunch to absorb a mystical aura of abundance or to, stimulate your mirror neurons. You take them to lunch to obtain a first-hand education.
It is much deeper than just an interview.
But the interview is the tangible value. You ask them for highly specific advice. You find out exactly which of the 3 asset classes they leverage to build their wealth. You learn the mechanics of how they structured their investments to minimize their tax burden.
Tax burden?
It is a data-gathering mission. You were looking for the mechanical shortcuts they discovered through trial and error.
But the data they give you is completely secondary to your belief that the data can actually work for you. Let's look at the transition from poverty to wealth through the lens of environmental exposure.
All right.
The psychological differences between the poor and wealthy mindsets dictate every action that follows that lunch. A person with a poor mindset looks at that wealthy mentor and feels envy.
Because of the scarcity mindset.
Right. Their worldview is rooted in lack, so they falsely believe the wealthy person's success somehow diminishes their own chances. They think, well, they got lucky, but that won't work for me.
True.
But a person with a wealthy mindset looks at that exact same successful person and feels deep inspiration rooted in the knowledge that wealth is infinite. Same data, totally different psychological processing.
And yet, if that deeply inspired person goes home, fails to set up an automatic savings plan, fails to balance their 4-step budget, and continues spending 105% of their income, well, they will remain impoverished. Well, obviously, but it does not matter how inspired they feel or how much they believe in infinite wealth. The execution of the mechanics is what separates the dreamer from the achiever.
Well, as we draw this discussion to a close, my position remains that shifting from a state of lack to a state of prosperity is fundamentally an internal metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanics you describe, the granular budgeting, the asset allocation, the leveraging of property, those are incredibly important, but they are ultimately just the physical symptoms of a healed mindset.
Symptoms. Wow.
Yes, true wealth is holistic. It requires recognizing that abundance exists not just in finances, but in health, in relationships, and in our spirituality. You must actively overcome your limiting beliefs. You must practice daily rituals like visualization and tithing that program your brain's reticular activating system for infinite supply.
Right.
You must curate an environment of success. Because without the foundation of a wealthy mindset, any mechanical structure you build will eventually collapse under the weight of your own limiting beliefs.
And my summary is that empowerment is ultimately a mechanical process. You cannot build a structurally sound life out of positive thoughts and mirror neurons. You need the steel, the concrete, and the engineering of financial literacy.
The engineering.
Exactly. Financial prosperity is achieved through the relentless application of mechanics, executing a granular budget that brings your unconscious capital leaks into the conscious light, automating your savings to protect your future self from your present impulses, and leveraging the 3 asset types: paper, real property, and business.
It takes work.
It takes continuous, practical education so you can handle larger sums of capital efficiently. When you execute the actions, the mindset has no choice but to adapt to the new reality you have built.
Well, though we approach the architecture of wealth from opposing angles, I think we have found a profound point of convergence in this material today.
Yeah, I think we have.
We both agree on the central premise regarding the tragedy of unutilized potential.
We do, and the J.K. Rowling example from the text illustrates this perfectly.
It really does.
If J.K. Rowling had given up her penchant for writing to chase a humdrum, safe desk job, she would not be the multimillionaire she is today. Ability without action is a tragedy. We all possess various talents, but failing to step outside of our comfort zone to utilize them guarantees financial stagnation.
We can absolutely agree on that. Whether you are paralyzed by a psychological limiting belief or you are paralyzed by a lack of mechanical financial education, staying in your comfort zone is the ultimate enemy of prosperity.
Spot on.
You have to take concrete action to build sustainable habits or nothing changes.
It seems the source material elegantly marries the esoteric elements of wealth, the visualization, the psychological reprogramming, the abundance mindset, with the deeply practical mechanics of strict budget plans and asset management.
It's a powerful combination.
It really is. It leaves us with a compelling question for everyone listening. If you look at the foundation of your own life, which requires the most urgent excavation right now? Is it the psychology of your internal beliefs or the structural mechanics of your daily actions? Thank you for joining us on The Debate.